Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I, on behalf of EMPI, which is a business school, one of its kinds, started in 1995 as on the principle of Gurukul by a team of nation builders, and one of its recent offshoots, Atal Incubation Center at EMPI, set up under the Atal Innovation Mission and supported by Niti Aayog Government of India, which is focused on renewable IoT and clean mobility technologies primarily, and its applications in health tech, agri-tech, energy, and few more. Remedy, India's first international innovation grand challenge, has been launched by AIC EMPI in association with National Health Authority as ecosystem partner and Digital Health India Association as the knowledge partner and co-host for this webinar. We also have few other national and international partners, and focus of this challenge is how to disrupt healthcare from traditional institutional methodology to pervasive and personalized healthcare. And through this challenge, we plan to discover and nurture innovative software, hardware, business solutions that enable remote monitoring, evaluation, diagnostics, intervention, and analytics. As a continuation of this challenge, the solutions and the entries which are selected, we will support them, help them to incubate, to accelerate, to further grow, set up and grow their businesses at the incubator. We also intend that existing health tech companies that are traditional hospital oriented, how they can make new offerings so that they can also operate in the remote mode and bring the healthcare to homes as far as possible. We are indeed fortunate to have Dr. Khalid Moidu as our eminent speaker today. He is not only a renowned professional, but also a pioneer in the health informatics sector and the telehealth sector. I will now request Dr. Uma Nambiar, chairperson of the Digital Health India Association and renowned practitioner of healthcare sector in her own right, to introduce our speaker and also moderate the session. Over to you, Dr. Uma Nambiar. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to this session. It's a pleasure to have this session today with Dr. Moidu. Actually, to introduce Dr. Moidu, I don't know how many of you understand Hindi very well, but it is to this crowd, which is from health tech and health informatics background. वो कहते हैं ना सूरज को दिया दिखाने वाली बात है. So I think that I should really limit myself and not get in the way of what Dr. Moidu has to talk to us about. But I want to just tell everyone here is Professor Moidu probably started in health informatics where maybe some of the people in the crowd here were not even born. And some who were born were just, toddlers or in school. So sir is probably one of the first healthcare informatics specialists from India. And he has had a vast experience across the globe with various multinational organizations, governments, hospitals. But more than anything else, I think I can say that he enjoys his role as a teacher and mentor the most out of all the roles that he has done. And I definitely enjoy being mentored by him So for me, it's a privilege. He's my senior from college, and I'm very, very proud of that association. And I'm leaving the uh, stage now to Dr. Moidu to interact with us and tell us. He's going to be, I'm sure, a motivator for the young innovators and entrepreneurs who are in the crowd today and who are trying to find their foothold in this world of digital health. Over to you, sir.
Good evening to you all in India, and good morning to anybody from the United States who's joining. I just see the sun started to peek out, so I'm sure it's going to be morning. Vinod Saab, thanks a lot for your very kind words. And with all the honors thrown my way, I sometimes wonder if I'm still sitting in my seat or am I levitating? So I don't know, but I'll tell you one thing. I'm very grateful to everybody here. I will start by saying, if this is a project and a proposal that's supported by Niti Aayog and the National Health Authority, let me share with all of you first that in 1983, in the 5-year plan, was the first time medical informatics was named as an important field in the 5-year plan. Dr. Harsharan Singh used to be the advisor health, and he had it included, and he called me to make sure the description was right, and that's how I know it was there. I've never read the 5-year plan, not been fortunate enough, but I think that guides the nation to the right path. So I thank Niti Aayog for guiding the nation in getting over this hurdle. I next like to thank EMPI Business School and the Atal Incubation Center. I personally had the privilege of knowing Atalji. He was a great man, and he was certainly a very big, benevolent person to a lot of initiatives that started in his prime ministership too. And to see that initiatives are still part of his name is great. I would last but not the least thank Digital Health India as the knowledge partner. And thank you, Uma, for inviting me. I love this name, Remedy. We are always seeking remedy, and never more than now in this COVID era, when we find every day a new drug is proposed and day after tomorrow that drug is removed. So really we are in search of a remedy all the time. And it is international. So I decided to make a plug for somebody I currently help and advise. I'll share some of their work. I could have talked about just my history and tried to, as they say, आप सबको प्रभावित कर सकता था मैं कि मैंने बहुत कुछ किया. But that's not the point. I wanted to raise awareness of an issue that truly distinguishes a successful venture from an unsuccessful effort. Ideas are always good as long as you don't implement them. It's when you implement them that you get to see the good, the bad, and the ugly. So this bouquet of adjectives to my name, I totally agree with Uma. It's the mentoring and innovation that really are my biggest drivers. I've retired thrice, first time in 2012. Then I went back to become a CIO, and then I became the CIO of the year. And in 2015, I retired from there, stayed home for a year, then went back to teach in a medical school and a university in New York. I live in Florida, in Orlando, but I used to fly up every Tuesday, teach Tuesday, Wednesday, and return home. So when you enjoy innovation and when you enjoy mentorship, you can go any length and enjoy it. But the key part is have fun. And that's what I'm going to ask you all to do is seek and enjoy and have fun. And you will notice if any of you have tried to track me down on LinkedIn, I've had lots of people asking me to be friends, and I've accepted all. I'm a non-discriminant acceptor of all people who reach out to me. So I'll say this, you'll find I've never worked anywhere for more than 5 years. Why? Because फिर वो शाम आ जाती है, फिर वही रोना होता है. So it's time to move to a new exercise and have fun. So all of you who are on the innovation cycle, I tell you, you guys are blessed. Anybody gives me a chance like Etma does, I retire, but I re-attire. So with that pun, I'll begin my story and hope you people find it of some value. Basically, the issue of consumerism is somewhere not included in informatics because we talk about our patient education, but we don't see it being clearly defined. When a large majority of people can read the word dizziness, they also need to understand the word dizziness has more than 28 SNOMED codes assigned to it based on the etiology of the origin of dizziness. So we may think we know English and therefore we are doing it, but by the time it gets communicated and conveyed, the story is very different. So I would like to introduce consumerism as a standard in design and development of solutions for healthcare professionals. So this is a word about ETMA. ETMA is an organization that has been developed by some bright young people. The CEO is the son of a brilliant classmate of mine, a cardiologist at Apollo, Delhi. And they basically look at this not as a technological revolution, but as a human evolution, because they are focused on the fact that it is not technology alone, it's data. And data literacy begins with consciousness of what a data is really telling you. So they have very high thoughts. They're into developing a lot of things. I'll give you a peek into applications, and I shall ask Uma and Vinod if I can ask them to submit their application for this competition.
Sure, they can.
And somebody's scratching on the screens. You have an iPad. Welcome to enjoy it. But distract me with your lines and I will be confused. At my age, it happens easily, you know. So let me begin by introducing myself. Then we will do a little audience assessment. We will go to the questions on Mentimeter, which I had shared earlier. We'll talk from a health informatics perspective, then solution development perspective, and then I will refocus on the issue of consumerism. While I do my own introduction, it's a long journey. So while I go through that journey, I will keep touching back on things that I learned. And those lessons we will again summarize towards the end in consumerism. But I will also share with you some of the work in health informatics at ETMA. Actually, while I pronounce it in the anglicized version as ETMA, it is nothing but Atma, soul. So it's atma.com, and they pride themselves by saying research reborn. I'm sorry, I just wanted to make sure people see the code again. Okay, I'll begin my story with a blank screen because I want to tell you, I'm going to hop through a lot of things. And the reason I wanted to give you a clean slate to begin with, so that you remember, I went to medical school first at the Armed Forces Medical College in Pune, where Uma and a few others who are here today have been my college mates. As alumni, we are still very proud of the college. We are always second to none. I then went, my next academic home was Linköping University in Sweden, where I worked on my doctorate. It was computer science as applied to health. So it was an experience going and learning algebra, discrete math, and philosophy as I entered the courses and did work in AI, and then finally designed my application software sponsored by the WHO, and learned a lot about the practical aspects of informatics. This is the thesis I worked upon. I am not an obstetrician, but maternal child health is a program that WHO does sponsor. So when they told me you want support from us, you will have to build software. And what I'd like to show is that essential data set was the way I tried to design a software, because this was designed as COTS, COTS. So you're going to get the first acronym from me, COTS being open over-the-shelf software and commercial. So commercialism was there in my idea, but we gave this software away because WHO paid for it. And idea was to do the service and look at the data to see how you can improve the service and go forward. The key goals of anybody trying to do analytics: look at the data, learn from the data. I then, on my graduation, was invited to work at Yale University Norwalk Hospital in the internal medicine residency program. I am a pulmonologist, so it was an interesting transition across the Atlantic. And here I had a lot of fun, developing a lot of effort, enabling decision support access or electronic library access for physicians all across the hospital. And this is where we had a foundation called the Beulah Hind Foundation that I worked under and brought a lot of money to the hospital for the research we were doing in deploying technology to support care providers. In those times, I had the opportunity of being a WHO consultant and helping Kuwait rebuild. And this is just a page I thought I'd share with you to tell you that it was fun creating a strategy and a report for a national rebuilding. So since I was trying to encourage you all to do more things, it was great. In 1994, I was approached by the telephone company in Connecticut, and they said, "Do you know anything about telemedicine?" Ah, I said, yes. In 1987, I went to Tromsø in northern Norway, and I saw a project of telemedicine. And they said, okay, then can you help us implement one? Because they needed permission to lay out fiber optic cable across the state, and they needed to show a social value project that will be based on fiber optic. The year was 1994. I told them I saw a telemedicine system where the phone was audio, the computer screen had some data, but the real data came as a fax. So there was a little video in in the television cameras that were attached to the computer screen. I said, we need to make it integrated. We built a system which was, the requirements were set by me, and the system was developed by a very famous defense partner called General Dynamics. And it was amazing because we had a lot of peripherals that we attached that allowed us in 1995 to auscultate the patient across the channel. But today, we do telemedicine, but to make it cost effective, that's consumerism, you can't really auscultate the patient in real time. We could actually pump up the blood pressure cuff on the patient after we have talked to the patient for some time, made them comfortable and easy using the technology. And this project came first in the telemedicine category for healthcare, and we were a finalist for the 1995 first National Information Infrastructure Awards program in the United States. It was a lot of fun. It got me a dinner with Al Gore, nothing more. This is where you're supposed to laugh. So my work with WHO led my center, Beulah Hines Center, to be recognized as a WHO collaborating center. And as we went through those processes, it gave me a lot of opportunities to consult with WHO. So many of these places, including a famine hit Zimbabwe, were really extensions of the lab. We developed a reporting system based on FidoNet. Yes, Amit? It gave me an opportunity to see how we could improve reporting. So every night, the peripheral primary health centers submitted a report that was compiled in the Ministry of Health in the night. And early morning, the health minister and the cabinet got to know the trends of how people were going, the degree of malnutrition. It was really great to see how data was being used at the most strategic level in deploying resources for the people as they were suffering an unfortunate famine. Then I did a little bit of telemedicine with Medical Center of Boston International. We partnered with Apollo. We partnered with the MGR Medical University, and there in the corner on my board is a permanent display of the announcement made in Times of India, where Dr. Karunanidhi Ji came and inaugurated this telemedicine center connecting Boston to Chennai. And guess what the year was? It was 2000, September 5th, 2000. It was on Teachers' Day, and it was basically designed to enable consulting and supporting education. Later, or maybe around the same time, I worked with a company developed in Hyderabad called Citadel Health. Citadel Health, we built a hospital information system. That system was later purchased by through Number Hands Exchange and is now a Wipro product, which is implemented in ESI hospitals, if I'm not wrong. Last that I heard of. I did some work with transcription, creating a portal that allowed doctors in America to get their transcriptions done by people sitting at home in India. This was the late 90s, and it enabled the doctors to submit their bills and describe the details of the injuries very well. So it was primarily a service driven towards orthopedic surgeons. I'll jump through a lot of other things I did until it came to 2013, whereas the CIO of a accountable care organization, I was responsible for implementing analytics that allowed each doctor to realize how well they were performing. And with that, I was given recognized by the local groups as the CIO of the year. So it was an experience, and all these experiences have somewhere contributed to my understanding of the field of computing as it meets healthcare. Now I'm going to turn to you all and ask you to tell me something about yourselves. Please submit the town you are in, and let's see what is the breadth of people. Somebody is saying hi, I say hi too. Somebody says hello. Somebody says they are from India. Great. Telangana, Maharashtra. Please submit any number. There are certainly more than 13 people. Come on, folks. We got to know you. Yeah, Winabad. So I've been a professor too long, and I have taught both on the medical side and the technology side. As when I taught at Purdue, I was the only physician who taught the software developers how to do requirements gathering. Everybody, all my students liked the bank examples, and I insisted we don't do bank examples, but go and do healthcare. And I told them, have any of you taken investments from a bank? No. Then what do you know? You only know how to go there, cash your check, and come back home. But when you go to a doctor, you go through the entire grind from getting an appointment, visiting the doctor. Somebody I can't compete with.
What happened to his man? He's not able to.
भाई मैं साधारण मनुष्य हूं, आपकी सदा के ऊपर मैं बोल नहीं सकता. So it has been, oh, we got somebody from Adelaide. Wow, that's quite a distance. So Manipal, how nice. So we will be talking more about these things as things have improved. I'm going to go to the next slide of questions, and this is asking you about how do you represent yourself today? Are you a technology professional, a health professional, administration, business, or you consultants? भाई इसमें शर्माइए मत, मैं आपसे सवाल नहीं पूछने वाला हूं, आप जरूर बताइए कि आप हैं कौन. So that way I can focus on what I would like to highlight. My story is a long one, but if it has to be of value to you, it has to be value from your perspective. So to describe technology professionals are usually the engineers, the software, or the hardware, or the network people. All are welcome there. The people who are doing the nitty-gritty of the digital revolution. The health professionals are the clinically trained people, doctors, nurses, pharmacists, lab technicians, anyone from that side. The business professionals are those who are going to be guiding these people. Administrative are those who have administrative roles in keeping people to a role. Then we have consultants. It seems there are only 15 live people, the rest are all fake, Uma. So in this world of fake news, I got to tell you, if I don't get more than 30, then I'm going to say this audience was fake. लगता है कुछ ज़्यादा ही शर्माते हैं आप लोग. There are 70 people, there are only 14 who are brave enough to tell us.
I think
What they do.
some of them are writing on the chat rather than on the Mentimeter. So
The chat is too small to.
no, that is where, because I have a lot of people who've written on the chat, so they need to go on the Mentimeter. I will type it again.
Okay, I will blow up the chat just to see a little here. Because I really want to know where are people from. Jajpur, Odisha, wow. I didn't know that Dehradun was part of Uttarakhand. I always thought it was UP. Good.
Oh,
I'm
it
learning.
got divided so long ago.
I know, I left a long ago.
Right.
So you'll have to forgive me. आप भारत में जितने विभाजन कर रहे हैं वो समझ में नहीं आता मुझे. We have somebody from Secunderabad. Ankleshwar. Nilesh Babu from Bengaluru. Bharat from Bengaluru. Chalo, 20 people have come to the Mentimeter. That's great, because I've got another couple of questions for you. And if you want to really reach me, I shall check on this Mentimeter. Arvind Lal sir, आपने हाथ उठाया, कहिए. Arvind Lal raised a hand. Is that my honorable batchmate Arvind Lal of Lal Path Labs?
Yes.
That's right, Khalid. It's me here.
Bolo Huzur.
No, great going. Please carry on.
Okay, sir. Thank you. So this is the profile of the audience. And we got 22. That's a better record than the last one. Now let's go for the last thing. I want to know how many of you are graduates, postgraduates, and professionals, because here I'm going to tell you, I will not give you the solution. It's not my goal to give you the solution. It is my goal to encourage you to start discovering for yourself. And when you do that, you will find a great joy when you discover what you have done and what you can achieve through your work. This time we moved fast to 19. This is good. A graduate is somebody who's got a BS. A postgraduate is anybody MS, PhD, whatever it is. Professional is somebody who's taken to the field and has adopted it to become an expert and do the service. It's so heartening to see we do have the creed of what we call the entrepreneurs, the likes of Zuckerberg and Bill Gates. I'm sure you will also break the records and make a solution that the world will adopt. It's exciting to hear and see so many nice people doing so much nice work. So my story over, got to know you guys a little. Let me introduce you to what I plan to speak on. My subject of focus is health informatics. It's about managing data in real time through technology and intelligence so that your decision is based on something that is true and not assumed. I had the privilege of having Arvind speak to organize an event that I had organized a few weeks ago, a week ago. And at that thing, he shared with me that it takes 8 milliseconds for him and the 3,000 labs all across India from where they do exchange of data. And that data drives everything in the care of that patient. Amazing, isn't it? How much have we improved? It's no longer the smell of the urine as you pee, but it's actual data to tell you when you're diabetic or not. The issue of there is a cycle of constant change in healthcare, and that's where I would like to begin. The care delivery shift is happening. We are seeing increasing primary care. As such, our medical education was very acute care centric. It has got to shift, and it is shifting. We are learning that we see more patients that are chronic. And it is not the organization that matters. At least we've learned that in America. But still, money makes the mayor go. So money is driving institutions and providers. What comes first? Do you want to go to a surgeon or do you want to go to an institution? This is a great debate, but it's all shifting. It's shifting at a pace that you can't imagine. I wanted to share with you a book I have read and found very interesting, written by somebody who is neither a healthcare person nor a technology person, but spent a lot of time in technology and healthcare. And he writes this book called Who Knew? And he's basically explaining the complexity of healthcare. The man's name is Lynn Vogel. I would recommend you to read it. That's the professor in me giving you the challenge to discover for yourself. So we all know the processor power keeps improving every 6 to 8 months. Even the phone processors are getting faster. The network speeds are going. We have now 5G. Artificial intelligence is becoming mainstream. And today we talk about bots and robots, where the bot hears what you're saying, takes it to the next level, fetches the information, puts it on the table. And there's a great solution that's designed around bots using the Microsoft solution team. As full disclosure, I have no shares in Microsoft, but I find that solution designed by a friend of mine here in Orlando called Andor Health. They have designed it beautifully to be the silent observer on the side with the doctor speaking to the patient in the telehealth consult and fetching his last lab results, his last x-ray, or his first x-ray to compare it to the last x-ray. So that's where technology is at your elbow, ready to make you more efficient. Now let's, for a moment, draw back as you are looking at starting the remedy effort and being part of this great challenge of doing an incubation project. So you begin with an idea, and that idea gets into being a design when you share it with others or you write it up yourself. And as you design the ideas and you share it with others, you begin by focusing on issues that are technical. Very few of us focus on medical. One of the things that I always try to insist is we got to remember, even as a cardiologist, there are 4 different types of cardiologists. There's an electrophysiologist, a non-interventionalist, an interventionalist, and a cardiothoracic surgeon. They all work with different sets of data. Their workflows are different. So the application designed for one does not work for the other. That's getting into minutiae. And those details are the details that are essential for success. So this conversation does not stop at design. It carries on in development. In development, now you start looking at the environment. Is there a way to keep this device hooked up? It was very fascinating when I was in the local hospital. I was trying to get the doctors to do order entry. We found that they were having trouble in the surgical unit. And then we found out that basically the local area network did not cover the entire surgical unit, though theoretically it was line of sight, but somehow something was interfering. So it's all the time you got to make your checks. And as you develop the thing, you also need to talk to the doctors. Is this the workflow you want? We talk about usability. We talk about the user experience, but the user experience is not from the consumer perspective. It's primarily from an impact perspective. So that brings me to, and the same thing goes on in deployment, and I'll come back to those 3 points again. Consumerism. Consumerism is the word of the day. And as I see, I've spent a lot of time on this. It's basically the interest of consumers. So anybody who touches information and seeks information is a consumer. And if we can't meet their needs, they will leave and they won't use your solution. That's the challenge you all have to think of. And that's the challenge I wanted to share with you and with everybody else. So consumerism is a social and economic order that encourages the acquisition of goods. That's the reason they will buy the shiny Apple Watch, or they will use the iPhone or the Samsung Android 5, whatever it is, because there is a value-added proposition with it. That value-added proposition is what we call, but we never look at it or relate it to a person. And that's the thing I wanted to focus today and encourage the people who are going into this remedy project to think about. We talked about consumerism in design. Expand your focus group, expand your thoughts. Even people who may not use it directly, but because these alerts pop up on what are we supposed to do with it? Do make sure that you engage them so they know what happens and how their world is changing. In development, these things become more intense because now you are trying to see what can be the smallest footprint by which you can deliver the software. So when I did my doctoral work, one of the challenges I had was I had to make sure the entire application was able to be was to be delivered to the peripheral clinics on a single-sided, single-density floppy disk. How many of you know how many kilobytes it is? Anybody wants to take unmute and take a guess? Well, it was just 320 kilobits, not bytes. So it was very small. I had to write the whole software that would go on that and deliver it. So that's in development I faced. In deployment, you have to think about, do they have all the required resources to make your application run good? So here, let's take a break. What are we seeing today? We see in healthcare today, the physician sees a patient, one patient when he's admitted, then the same patient after 4 weeks when he comes back to the physician's office, or maybe then 6 months later. Are you accepting the reason that he is only sick at these 4 occasions or 3 occasions that he's come and seen the physician? Are you trying to say his disease takes a vacation? It's high time. It's high time in this age of technology and enabling solutions like the Internet of Medical Things, that you need to think of how you can monitor the patient round the clock and send the highlight events to the doctor in a form that he can assimilate. Don't do as what the WHO calls info epidemic, and create a great pressure with a deluge of data with which they can't fathom or think. That we suffer as it is on WhatsApp. Everybody is sending a WhatsApp. There's always a forward. I always ask, have you read it? And they all say no. Then I say, why send it? Because if you can write a line and say, this is what it talks about, it saves me the time. Am I going to look at it or not? Because everybody has decided they have to write. And in writing, they have gone way over. As a matter of fact, as far back as March 5th, when I started on a project to create a decision support guidelines project for COVID, I found there were 35,000 papers published since January and February that all described COVID. When you start reading them, you found there were opinions or singular experiences that you really could not extrapolate. Even the same author had 2 or 3 papers and they all didn't have the same story. So there's a serious request that you should remember your consumer is your physician or a clinician or a healthcare professional who doesn't need that extra information. So now let me give you a quick overview of what is happening at Health Informatics at EMPI. I am associated with them, and I'm not trying to make a sales pitch, but just give you some insight. I'm not good at sales. I'll share that up front. They have built, they have a team of geneticists and bioinformaticists, and they're building genetic solutions that are going to support these 4 areas: precision medicine, preventive care, public health, and of course, research. They will create solutions that are versatile, customizable, automated, and what it will be is creating a software engine that will help you analyze and standardize the reporting pattern of the changes seen. I do have a wireframe, but in respect for time, I shall move a little fast. It can be integrated with a laboratory information management system, or it can be integrated with the Atma portal, for what it is. We are also working in AI solutions. Yes, as a research startup, we try to do areas that others are moving, but the movement is not fast enough, not crowded. And of course, these are the 3 reasons everybody tries to jump. We try to do screening, sharing, and viewing results is part of the activity. And while artificial intelligence can be applied in multiple areas, we are looking at applying it in the physical recognition space. That's image recognitions, and such as histopathology, radiology, and getting the information from IOMT devices, integrating it, and predicting what can be happening. We are currently working with these 2 examples. Our solution is designed to be effective and a collaborative one. So the solution will require upgrade at the end user end to enable them to give the data for quick response within 60 seconds of any image they need to check upon. And this is where we are headed. And soon we would go in the non-radiology areas. Dermatology was an area of great telemedicine work in the past, and it is going to be. Even in India, there's a group working with friends in the Bal Vidya Peeth in Pune, doing radiology analysis. We created a solution that takes the histopathological slide where an area of interest is identified. And in that area of interest, we have identified the subpoints where the malignancies are seen. And that allows a busy histopathologist to be straight driven to those areas. And as he goes to those areas, he or she goes to those areas, they can see what value it is. They can affirm and reconfirm what they see. And that's what would enable the pathologist to be more productive. This would be a demonstration. I'll pass by it and reach the end so that I can give you time to ask me questions. And I'm sorry, I didn't think I would talk so much. Over to you, Uma. Don't tell me, Uma's gone to sleep?
No, I'm very much here. So are there questions on your Mentimeter?
I can check.
Have you opened to that or for the questions?
No, it seems a clean slate. Everybody is using, I've seen, there's no new share since the last 44 I saw in the chat here.
So you just opened the thing for questions. So I suggest the participants to actually go back on menti.com and ask the questions.
I've got a question here. It's a very interesting question. It actually behooves my answering it because it is the challenge between too many apps and not enough apps. When I started in this journey of health informatics, working in leadership roles, we always tried to have one information system, and that system came from one company, and that monolith was all that we had to live with. It was called a health information system or a hospital information system, and you always had a single instance of the database that everybody said, oh, a single instance of truth. It sounded good. It was wonderful. But the challenge in that was things were changing, end users were learning, as end users learned, they wanted more new things. And these large companies with their large solutions were unable to meet the expectations of the end users. And as a CMIO at Orlando Health, I was better known in the industry as the Chief Apology Officer, because I would listen to my physicians at the governance meeting and they would make a lot of requests of me, and I would say, nice, but can't do it. Thank you. But today, actually for the last 7-10 years, we have changed a bit. We started integrating applications. So are apps meant for everybody to download on their phone? No, I think we now can be selective and give apps only for that specialty to that area. And for that reason, I would say there will never be an app overload as long as you know how to integrate the app and only percolate to the top of the app the solution that the end users need. Think consumer, go specific, and develop that app, what you developed 5 years ago. Be ready to think of it as ready for the burial. So you better bring up a new one that goes on. If you notice, Microsoft, Apple, all give you system updates within 6 to 12 weeks of each other. Think like that, keep producing. You will stay engaged. Your end users, your consumers will find value and they will keep paying. Otherwise, guess what? Why should they pay the maintenance fee you ask? You've done nothing for me since my last solution. Why should I pay you? This is a complaint I've heard from people, and both sides. From the industry, people asking me, they are not paying our maintenance, sir. It's 25%, 30%, and our profit is really written there. You didn't do anything for them. They have a right to walk away from you. And today, we are all know that the standards come out that we are moving towards data transportation, and we will not see anybody locked down to a system anymore. Okay, genetics interoperability. Well, neither is FHIR, which is actually a data exchange protocol, or OpenEHR, because genetics data, if you know, is GATC, GATC, nothing more. So in that combination of GATC, it's not a very large volume of data. It may be a page full, but it's just bits and bytes. So at this moment, we haven't found the need to challenge. As far as the OpenEHR goes, it's a whole different area of operation. The OpenEHR isn't, or no EHR, as I can say, because I do still stay in contact, has yet learned how to display genetics information. So till some years ago, till a few years ago, one would say genetics is news you can't use. But we are changing, we're learning. As we come together, we are finding great value. It will find a place in OpenEHR, but is a FHIR or OpenEHR? I'm sorry, it's a discordant question. I will seize the answer there. Oh, what a lovely question. Future of telemedicine solution for ICU service. Remote monitoring, exactly. You have a patient round the clock in the hospital, but your nurse goes to see him twice or thrice in a day, or maybe 5 times, maybe 7 times. What happens in between? That needs monitoring. We have all the devices that can monitor the electrophysiological status of a patient. And if those IOMT devices, if they are able to trigger and transmit information in time, it makes for a great ability to get better outcomes. Many of you have heard of the clinical problem of pediatric patients dying in the crib called SIDS. Things like that shall never happen again. You have a small booty, you put it on a baby and you monitor it. I had a granddaughter. When she was born, she was less than a kilo. And yes, she is now a robust, noisy 5-year-old. And when you look at her and you wonder, we have gone and seen the miracle of modern medicine. How do I see AI revolutionizing the medical sector? I see the immediate pieces in this physical recognition of information in histopathological slides, radiology slides. I actually had a vision of a project which was, can I get a breast mammogram and see in it things I would see in a histopathological exam, somewhere building a correlation and breaking that silo between the radiologist and the pathologist. And as a breast mammogram is so much faster than getting a patient in for a histopathological, for the biopsy and things like that. So I think with the way things are going, even the pathologists have adopted histopathology so well, and the results will come out faster. There won't be a queue of slides to be analyzed. So that in the physical things. So just remember that physical image recognition piece is very much like the early signal processing piece that we mastered. And today when you take an EKG, the EKG gives you the report. You just got to read the report and then look for the things in the image. So these are standardized responses, standardized physical responses that you can analyze and standardize. This AI ML problem of data shift and underspecification. The problem is huge. Garbage in, garbage out. So the specificity and the specifications have to be clearly defined and understood. So like in the work for ABHA, we began by looking at slides that were given to us by the National Library of Medicine. Yes, within 2 weeks, we were up and analyzing those pieces. And the system was doing great. But then we came across the challenge of the times. The challenge of the times being, what do we do with slides that come from an institution that is not so well versed? They are using the latest machine. But Philips has built the machine to scan the slide in. The question is, can it work on that big slide, or do we need specificity to go into smaller areas? We did need that. And so we built a piece. Now, as we go forward, we have two parts of the software. One is the analytical piece that we control and hold, which gives you within seconds the response of what you load, and you allow your system to prepare and give us as many as a few 100,000 pieces of that image so that we can go into each piece separately and check out for the pathology if it exists. It is a lot of things.
हाँ वो
Sorry, I
सेशन
heard
चल रहा है
somebody.
ना, इनका प्रोग्राम चल रहा है EMPI का. आप मुझे
So-
दे दो चाबी, मैं लगा दूंगा ताला. मैं वहां जाते हुए
So
दे
we
दूंगा.
come to the issue of consumer data to go mainstream in healthcare. Yes, very much. It's time for us to go into consumer data as mainstream because we are all seeing patients getting very comfortable with those Apple phones, Apple watches, and all these devices are now collecting data and passing them. So it's time to harness this information and make it in a form that does not become part of the infodemic, as the WHO says. But the infodemic, as WHO says, is about the social misuse of information. I would ask you to stay with the right side and talk about things that can be done to identify a patient before they go into heart failure.
हाँ काम तो आ जाएगा, अगर आपको चाहिए आप ले जा लो। ठीक है तो यहीं छोड़ दो, मैं ले जा लूंगा खाना।
कुछ आपको काम आ जाएगा।
हाँ खाना खुना खाने का काम आ जाएगा।
लाने वाने
लाने का तो नहीं, ढक्कन तो मैंने फेंक दिए।
Hello?
बस वहीं रूम पे
Hello?
खाने के काम आ जाएगा।
Hello.
Anyone?
There's someone who's speaking with his new mic on. So
Thank
I
you,
think
Ma.
now we can continue. Yeah.
Thank you, Ma. So consumer data is going to come in, and it's time we stop seeing things as just cardiology, just rheumatology, just gynecology. The body is one. Which time we bring all the data together and enabling apps to handle the social determinants of health is equally important, because many a disease, as we see with the COVID fatalities, that it has a very selective demographic that it is affecting. What is the point of introspection in innovation cycle? It's a very deep question. And let me ask you, if you are trying to go to Delhi and you find yourself on a flight to Bombay, isn't it time to jump off the flight? So I think we do that in our life all the time. But sometimes when we have an idea and we build it up, and if we push it, we keep pushing it and we forget the reality. And that loss of reality is not good. So the point is introspect and reflect every day at the end of the day. When you meet a venture capitalist and he'd ask you, what is the impact of your solution on the environment? You look at his face and say, environment? I'm doing healthcare. No, you may be doing healthcare, but it is the environment in which you're going to produce this, deploy the solution that's going to change because of 5G, for example. Then what happens? So the issues are all connected. We are not in isolation. So the more frequently you reflect and introspect, you'll do better. Well, it's true. I won the national award in 1995 for telemedicine. It got me a dinner with Al Gore, nothing more. But the fact remains, the bigger problem was who and how was the telemedicine service going to be paid? What you today have, courtesy the Telemedicine Society of India and the new Medical Council of India that has put together the telemedicine practice guidelines. Now we know what constitutes a telemedicine encounter. It was not done here till about a few years ago. And that too, it came in bits and pieces. So in America, we started paying for teleconsult services only in the last 5 years. What does it mean? It means something has to happen where people suddenly find they can't do without it. So COVID was one solution where COVID was one situation, not a solution. Sorry, forgive me for that. COVID was one situation that said personal contact is not a good thing. And that's where the story began of digital health solutions having a value. And when we are looking at that, we got to see the issues that come up with the issue of data security of patients. Yes, any kind of data can be monetized. Sometimes it can be abused, like identity theft. So it's a whole big subject. Maybe another day, if one of your speakers talk on security, I'd love to come and share with you. What I did as far back as 2010 on an NSF grant on trying to study the limits and limitations of security in healthcare. Because on one hand, we need all information to take good care. On the other hand, we also need to make sure or ensure that our patients' information is kept sacrosanct. Well, this is a very nice question, but it's a class. It was a whole course I used to teach at Purdue, where I, as a physician, taught software engineers the issues of requirements gathering. When sometimes you do these session focus groups and sessions, even doctors learn to realize that what they say is not entirely understood by the patient. So it would be nice to put them together, isolating them earlier, then aggregating them together later was my way of doing it. When I did the governance of the information systems at Orlando Health, I had a physician group, I had a patient group, I had a nursing group, and the three groups would meet individually with me on the week. And once in 2 weeks, they all got together and we discussed the same things. So yes, you need to do it. As for disability being and sexuality, I would try to refrain from those two conversations at this moment. I didn't pay much attention to it, though we in America have this challenge of how do you describe a person. So with that said, I would say yes, these are all good things to think about, and a standard universal system of the future should take all those things into account. Well, virtual primary care. The issue of primary care is not just conversation. Today, when I look at telemedicine being delivered, it is just conversation. Where is the data? Since when did we in primary care stop examining the patient? So it was developed at breakneck speed because COVID came as a calamity, and it did not stop people from having things and getting issues. So there was a lot more conversation. Just remember, somebody with 30 years of education talking to somebody with 12 years of education or 15 years of education, there is a general gap, and that professional conversation and words are not very well understood. So it was a very interesting thing that I served in Iran during the time of the Shah, and I was very surprised that they were so focused on constipation. Every time they talked about a patient would come and present, the patient would say, "Oh, my child hasn't passed motion for 2 days, 3 days." And I said, open up the wrap, and when I touched the baby, blazing temperature. They can't feel the temperature, but they did see there was no outcome from the bowels. So do we have similar conversational social dilemmas that may not be understood by the Shehri Dr. Babus? Maybe. I think it's anything breakneck speed is going to break the neck. You said it. I would ask you all to again go back, look at the TPG and see what can and cannot be done. For a very long time, the early telemedicine that came into being adopted in America was teleconsultation for psychiatric issues, behavioral issues, which is primarily talking. But when it comes to physical examination, I would say let's think it over. And for my thoughts on its application in India, go to TPG. If it doesn't work, the folks at NITI Aayog, at ESPI, at DHA India, they will take, or TSI, they will take the issues and raise the noise so that we find a way to solve that problem. Rome was not built in a day. And this will also not be built in a day. So here we have a very critical topic, pernicious consumerism. Well, just buying systems for system's sake is what happened in many hospitals in India. I can't forget, I went to a certain hospital, I won't take the name, when I was an early student in the field in 1986, and they described their local area network to me with great pride. Yes, 86 was about the time when everybody was proud of networks going up. And a 26 node local area network was considered something huge. I admired the work. I was seen by this person in charge of that project. It's a very big hospital, I won't take names. And he got comfortable with me. And then he suddenly turned to me and says, since you are a physician and you're studying, I was still a student then, you're studying the subject, could you tell me, why do doctors admit patients from their offices, from the home, from the emergency room, and not always send them to the front desk? I turned to the gentleman and I said, so you come from the hospitality business? He said, yeah, how did you guess? I said, my friend, it's only in a hotel that people enter from the front desk. In healthcare, we come from all over, including sometimes being dropped in by a helicopter. So when you talk of pernicious consumerism, there is no end to buying systems and no end to spending money. The issue is you must have built in your governance a process to review, a process to evaluate, and a process to decide whether you will make further investments in the area or cease. And governance is an area which very few people take to. This is more an institutional issue. As far as the startup people who are here, I want to tell you, make more toys for the boys and the girls. Do I see platforms like Amazon or Walmart playing a bigger role? Unfortunately, yes. Because at the end of the day, it's the fiscal challenge of how do you support the solution? When I say how do you support the solution, if you find there is an error, like there was an error in a system I used, that when a doctor made a request for blood samples, he could write the notes that the first pack should be given to the patient at 600 hours, 0600 hours, and the second should be after a hemoglobin check, and the third this. He would write his criteria. He thought that information was going to the blood bank. It was not. It was a document meant only for him to remember how many packs he's ordered and what is his thought plan. When you try to correct that, it requires rewriting in a very big way. Many people talk about systems and talking about things working with each other. Let me share with you, there's one database, and that database will accept the command going from the desktop and will not, you cannot be sure of what the doctor is writing on his phone being received there in time, and then who is the source of truth becomes the challenge. These are very simple issues, but they become problems. So as we talk of ecosystem with apps, this will become bigger. So maybe Amazon with their data centers in the cloud, Walmart with their consumerism at the level of the patient, with their large footprint, we might see a lot more consumerization. But then we got to be careful. In healthcare, we had the biggest fraud. I don't know how many of you remember, but there was a young lady. She was a very glib talker. She couldn't finish her college in Stanford, but because she got admission there, she was considered brilliant. She couldn't pass anything, but she became so brilliant, she started a company called Theranos. And she built a solution that she called Edison. Poor Mr. Edison must be turning in his grave, because she said, all you need is a drop of blood and she can give you a report on everything. And Elizabeth Hurley ended up a felon for the fake things she did. But at least when you have big people with big money of their own and you chase them, they will have to maintain a certain degree of truth. And that's what will allow these people to flourish. All the app builders, look at these guys. If they want to integrate with their solutions, your apps, go for it. Information model. That's a very interesting aspect of informatics. Information model. In the world of discourse, there's a lot of information flowing. What's relevant, what's irrelevant, only the end user can say. And I do believe when you design a system, you begin with data modeling. And in healthcare, we do a lot of data modeling and we build it. But sometimes we lose control, and that's where governance has to come in. At an institution, I was asked to develop an analytics process for emphysema patients. And when I went to look at the history of smoking, I found that in every encounter sheet, there was a new set of smoking parameters described and collected. When I aggregated all of them, there were over 55 of them. It's not possible to correlate any kind of findings, even if you got more than 100,000 patients in your database with those 55. So you need to be able to take an information from its modeling to its defining to its standardizing a process. And that was my effort in my doctoral thesis in what I call the essential data set. In the area of maternal child health, it was very fascinating to see an advanced country like Sweden was collecting 132 parameters And a country like India, we collected only 32. So finally, working through what is a data element on which you can decide as a criteria, we define those as essential that would transform the care or introduce a higher degree of monitoring as ways to go forward in the information model. So the open EHR gives you a data model. Is that acceptable across all fields? I don't know. If I were to ask somebody, I would say, this is how I did in my way of standardizing the documentation of 86 clinical specialties. We have in America over 134 medical specialties recognized by the board of American Board of Diplomats. And in those 86, I found no two groups, even in like cardiology or even in pulmonary medicine, an asthmatic patient and an emphysema patient. Yes, both are restrictive airway disease, but the pathophysiology being different, it digresses. Now, for all the technologists, please make sure you have a good clinical colleague who is able to discern, and he should pay attention only to the minutiae of details as you design the application. Sometimes people think since I talk and live the world of technology, I must have forgotten medicine. Actually, it's become stronger. I know I've gone over time. This is the last one. Thank you for amusing me. My view, brother, kill the doctors is like committing suicide. So don't think you'll ever replace doctors. Because if you look at it, I shouldn't go there. I won't. The fact is, there are people who have to remember that when I tell somebody 2 + 2 is 4, and I ask you why, you will say, oh, come on, Dr. Moidu, you got your PhD. You should know that. But if I go to my granddaughter at 5, I tell her, what's 2 and 2? She'll say 4. I said, why 4? Why not 5? She will take out 2 pencils and 2 crayons. She'll say, these are 2, these are 2. And here it is 1, 2, 3, 4. This is a common sense problem. It's unfortunate those who believe in artificial intelligence are naturally stupid. I'm not trying to be rude. I'm just trying to be factual. We think because we taught the machine knows more than us. No, never. And the fact is, today, after the era of COVID, where we called it first a respiratory virus, and now we call it an endothelial virus, our knowledge has changed. Anybody who created a decision support describing cough as the only symptom now realizes that blood clotting is a more common symptom. So think of things that are continuously evolving. Please, sir, use AI and robots to make the doctors spend more time taking care of you and take away the unnecessary manual labor that they form. Like the Endor Health, I'm not endorsing them, I'm just sharing an example. ANDOR Health, they use these Teams robots to actually collect the clinical terms and populate your electronic health record. Now, for a doctor who doesn't have to do the keyboard, it's a godsend. Because if it was only keyboard, it would be great. But we need clicks and keyboard. Click means I look here. Keyboard means I look there. Or even if I'm a good typist, I can do something. But I'm still shifting from field to field to field. So I am being slowed down. And I hate to say it. If on all my life, I'm very proud of everything I've been involved with, except pushing the EHR down the throat of the doctors. I made the most expensive worker in a health system the data entry operator. With that said, and having apologized to all the doctors in the world, I thank you for your questions. I thank everybody for being such patient listeners. Yes, Professor Isley.
So there are a couple of questions. I think Professor Ariel Krishnan. Can
Hello.
I him to? Yeah.
Oh, he's Adil. He's Malayali.
Yeah, are you able to hear me?
Natagaran.
Yeah, he's
Yes, sir.
Ariel Krishnan. It's ZH. It's a Mallu name. Ariel Krishnan.
Yeah.
Right.
Adil
Yeah, this is
Krishnamurthy.
Professor Elil Krishnan.
Yes.
My question is, how is this artificial intelligence, machine language, Internet of Things, blockchain revolutionizing the healthcare?
Sir, we are still in the age of infancy.
Yeah.
In the area of knowledge-based solutions, we do take knowledge such as clinical guidelines, alert systems, and integrate it with the data collection. As far back as 2010, I had over 3,600 triggers for alerts in the clinical information system at Orlando Health, where annually we took care of over 150,000 patients in bed. We had 7 institutions, and I had about 2,500 doctors using them. There, I had an instance where we had an alert that Tylenol, or Panadol as you call it in India, a very commonly used drug, was being prescribed for pain, and we were giving it, we shouldn't give it more than 2 grams a day. So we had an alert approaching 2 grams and exceeded 2 grams. I found on review of the data that the alerts had been triggered over 16 and 17,000 times in a month and not heeded to by the doctors. So one day we had a grand rounds. I gave a talk, I shared the data, and I told them that all of them were responsible for the liver dysfunction the patients were getting with the overdose of the medicine. And guess what? In 6 weeks, they invited me back to tell them what was the status. And there was nobody exceeding 2 grams. So the question is, you do it and you think of the consumer and educate the consumer, they will adopt it. But if we do it because we think we know more than them, it won't work. Because let's remember, a normal education allows you to learn 8,000 facts. A clinical education, you learn 30,000 facts. And this was an assessment made as far back as 1980, when genetics and proteomics and all these other icks were not part of our vocabulary. So medicine is a knowledge explosion area. It will benefit a lot from these technologies as long as we position them to be assistance at the elbow.
Excellent, doctor. Thank you so much for bringing insight to this. Thank you.
You see, I'm retired,
So there
so
are
I
one
can
or
say
two-
anything I like.
So there are 1 or 2 more questions in the chat box. Can I read them for you?
Please, ma'am.
So it says, so there's a question from Shivaram Rajgopalan. And he says, as if you remember, he spoke last time. And so he has asked you whether what can we do to help directly individuals with personal health information and data and resources to reduce the chances of them becoming patients.
By using personal health information,
And or data and resources. So basically, to say whether there can be so much preventive health that they can stop becoming patients.
So the word personal health information is slightly misused from the way I understand. Personal health information to me is anything that describes you, Mr. John Doe. So we have under HIPAA 22 elements that are called PHI, and that's personal health information. But what you really mean, I now realize, is a personal health record. And I think a personal health record with all these bots and IOMT devices on you could be a constant monitor of your state of health, and it could give an alert whereby you can go back and take care of yourself. I'll just share an example. I'm sorry to draw it out a little more, but I had been so busy implementing systems and moving one data center after another into the cloud, I did not have a good physical checkup in 2012. So in 2013, when I decided to get my cataract removed, I found myself in the pre-anesthetic checkup to have a HbA1c of 13.5. It's horrible. It's disgusting and disgraceful for a doctor to find himself with that kind of a reading. But when I found myself in that situation, the only option was suck up and pull up your sleeves and move on. And I got myself going. And today, if any of you exchange messages with me in WhatsApp, you'll find my image from my Navy days, Indian Navy uniform, as my profile picture, DP as you call it. I have gone there for the only reason I have reversed my metabolic disorder. My HbA1c is now 6.1. So the issue is, yes, we have enough knowledge, we know enough things, and we can reverse disease. So I would tell him, sir, please promote the idea of a personal health record. I built a personal health record for emphysema patients. So when they were in acute state and they needed to go to the hospital, they would print that one-page sheet that told them what the meds they were on, because otherwise they would come to the clinic, and while the doctor is talking to them, he will pull off their oxygen mask, which they're sucking on, and ask them, when did you see your doctor last? I don't remember. What are the meds you take? When did you take it last? It's a bad conversation. It was agonizing. And when I built that personal health record for patients in 2000, for emphysema patients, and we gave it on the National Emphysema Foundation webpage, a patient had such a good experience that when she died in 2005, she donated her entire estate to the National Emphysema Foundation. And that was $1 million plus. So, personal health record, very good. Reversal of disease, entirely possible. Let's remember, and this is an advice to all of you who think you're getting diabetic. Just remember, we were not born with electricity. Our day ended at a certain finite time. You could not cook whenever you felt like. So with those things in mind, stop eating at 5 o'clock in the evening, 6 o'clock in the evening when it's sunset. Don't eat till sunrise plus 3 hours. And you'll find that you will get insulinemia, and that insulinemia will reverse your diabetic state. Things are possible. These things are being written. There's a lady doctor in Delhi, Manoshi Bhattacharya. She's written a very good book on this. Please think about it. How many of you can reverse your disease? That would be great to hear. Uma?
Sir, can I go to, so there are 2 more questions.
What?
There are two more questions for you.
What, ma'am?
So there's a gentleman who wants to know, he says that he wants to know how to reduce the workload on physicians of using the electronic portals or care delivery apps in healthcare consumerism, when many of them already feel overburdened with the work with which EHR and equivalent technologies expect of them.
Excellent question. That's the frontier in which we should all be working in. I would request the managers of the Project Remedy to really give marks for those that reduce the burden on the physician to enter data as much as possible. Do we have tools? Yes. Voice recognition, dictation, and now with Microsoft Teams, those bots can be prepared and placed to automate the process of documentation. The need for documentation should never be underestimated. It is immense because it allows you to know where the patient was in the physical state yesterday and how they go to tomorrow. And that is the silent gap which we need to always track to show and understand, is my patient improving or not improving? Of course, there are calculation scores that go and calculate and tell you your patient is on an upward trend or a downward trend. But the fact is, all that still needs data. And for that data entry, it is key that we create smarter apps and solutions. Maybe some apps can be put on the patient itself. There was a project and a solution in the market which I deployed in my clinics when I was running a group of 150 physicians. We had a solution called Patient Point. It was on an iPad. When the patient came, we would give it to them. They would fill in their situation as they felt today, and all that would be reviewed by the nurse when the patient was checked in, and that would be added to the history and clinical notes of the day, and the physician would validate them. Only then they would be recognized. So that entry was shared. There is another way is you can do is collaborative documentation, which can be another way where you have a nurse, a nursing assistant, somebody who documents, the physician reviews and adopts it. So instead of writing the whole thing, he can get help. As a matter of fact, I did work with the US Department of Health and Human Services, the CMS specifically, and the Office of the National Coordinator to allow what we call medical assistants to document in the electronic health record. They were not allowed earlier. Now they are allowed, but they have to be registered in a society and they need to have a degree. Earlier, anybody who wanted to apprentice could become a medical assistant, very much like what you have in India with the RMPs. So I'm not getting into policy, but I would recommend folks who suggest powers that be, you do think of a solution that is more wholesome, that allows for governance, allows for consumerism, allows for end user concerns, all to be addressed. Thank you. It's a great question.
And there is just one more question. And so there's a gentleman, Avinash, who wants to know, he wants you to tell us about quality and KPI in telemedicine consultation for maintaining best practices.
Best practices. The trouble with best practices is we look at practice with the ability to what we can fund, what we can afford. Unfortunately, they may not be the best practices. And for that reason, I would strongly urge Avinash to think, to distinguish between what is minimum and what is essential. Whenever a thing is brought to the market, it is brought to make it affordable. And in that affordability, certain things are removed. The telemedicine system I used back in 93, 94, I could auscultate the chest of a patient. The patient used to come to a clinic, which we called a free clinic. They would sit, they would talk. I would tell them, take the stethoscope. They would pick it up and place it on their chest. And I would say, move left, move right, move up, move down. I'm sorry, we can't do it anymore. Now, we say we can auscultate using these devices, but they're not as precise. So there can be a blue ribbon standard, and then there could be an affordable standard. So which is the best practice you want to call? Just because you can't afford the blue ribbon, does it mean you don't do it at all? Especially when a patient is sitting at home, not feeling too good with COVID. I don't want to see him. I don't want to be in his physical presence if I can avoid. Should I tell him to come in, or should I try to give him some help? So there will be some shortcuts taken. And those shortcuts, we have to continuously monitor and ensure how we can improve on them. So let's not look at a standard. Let's look at continuous improvement of the quality. I hope I answer you, Avinash. If not, you can unmute and tell me back, because yours is a thoughtful question, but it's not easy to answer unless I know how much money is there in your pocket.
So Avinash is unmuted. Avinash.
Thanks a lot, sir. Yes. My
Avinash,
network may be
you are the medical
weak in
student?
rural area.
Yeah, he's a medical student and his
I know him.
Yes,
I know
sir.
him. I know him.
Yes, sir. We met last time when you were in India.
Yeah, beta, I
So
remember.
yes, sir. The best practices. I was very interested in that because affordable to patients on that side.
So remember,
And thanks a
best
lot for
practice.
your answer. It clarifies a lot.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
So the best practice is
Yes, sir.
to do as much examination and collect information firsthand as possible. That's the best practice. Now, how short do you come is the question. So with that gap, which remains uncovered, we have a chance of continuously improving quality. So keep an eye open on the people developing solutions that remedy, and keep improving. It is not for nothing, nothing happens. Let me give one last example to you. A group
Yes, sir.
came with the idea they could take a single lead EKG in a watch. This is a group based in Geneva. They came with an idea. I was hired as a consultant to evaluate marketability. And this was in 2015 when I just retired for the second time. And they said, the EKG will be taken there. It will be transmitted through the wireless network at home, through the internet to Geneva, and somebody would give a report. I said, why can't we shorten that whole span and write the result right here? Because the only thing valuable you get out of a single lead EKG is the rate and rhythm. When I say rate and rhythm, I can only look at one disease that it will really help, and that is atrial fibrillation. And if I can only look at one disease, and if I can't reduce it to seeing the patients on the watch right away how they are, it's of no value. I don't need a report 4 days later that I had a fibrillation 4 days ago. The trouble with atrial fibrillation is the patient stands up, tries to walk, the fibrillation onset, he gets dizzy, he falls, he's unconscious, he's rushed to the hospital, and in that first hour, there are $10,000 worth of tests done, ching, 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 ching. Cash is drawn out of his pocket. Is that right? I don't think so. So all they needed to do was reduce that algorithm to see that one kind of strip that is an atrial fibrillation rhythm and change the color of the dial from white or black to red. And if every time he was going to, if he's a patient of atrial fibrillation, he looks at his watch, not for the time, but to see he's not having fibrillation, and then starts walking and keeps watching his watch. He's not going to drop. He's not going to go to the hospital. So in every element of a solution, you have an opportunity to intervene. The technologist can think of the techniques. The clinician can think of the clinical situations. That combination is what Remedy should encourage. And I would be happy to help ESPI put a program together in health informatics, because without a workforce, there will be no work. It's a pity. Every time I go anywhere, I find a lot of Indians in all these software stalls in the exhibitions and conferences. But these are all young men who are very bright. They picked up the technology, and they are all technologists. And unfortunately, when they talk to people, they all keep talking about not knowing medicine. So if we have some health informatics courses, at least they'll come out saying with a little more degree of confidence. So Vinod Saab, I've taken more than my time, but I definitely left a homework for you. And when you're missing.
Sir, I'm really grateful for this generous offer. Actually, it couldn't have come at a better time, because we are already looking at possibilities to introduce courses and specializations which will be needed more, which will be more practically could be applied by managers of tomorrow. So we are. That's why I say that this couldn't have come at a more opportune time. वो कहते हैं ना कि आज तो खुदा से कुछ और भी मांगते तो मिल जाता, पर अभी और नहीं मांगेंगे। आपने उसने जो दिया है आपके जरिए से, उसको हम डाइजेस्ट करके, एंड वी विल डेफिनेटली कम, बिकॉज हम ये इंक्यूबेटर को बनाना चाहते हैं एक लैब, जैसे आप डॉक्टर्स को ट्रेन करते हैं वो
I've got more people. I've got more people working as CIOs than physicians. Just want to tell you that. I mean, I've got medical classes always full, but my CIOs, I have plenty of them in the health systems all over the country here.
Absolutely. And
so we need both sides to be trained. So, and especially if you are putting it as a business program, there should be a certain degree of understanding. If you have a health management program, without technology, the future of healthcare is nowhere.
Absolutely, sir. And as technicians, if we can contribute something towards that, I think it will always be very satisfying. I mean, all the life we have been dealing with machines and things like that. So if we can contribute something for our own brothers and our own self, I mean, as we often say, what can be measured, only that can be controlled. So with this, as I think somebody raised a little while back, that if I am told every day that this parameter is not in order, or this is going beyond, maybe I'll definitely be more amenable to control it and then come out of it rather than just leave it because I don't have the precise feedback.
True, sir.
So I think with that, we've really come to our concluding session. We've had an excellent session with you, sir. Your interaction, especially with all the people, have been excellent. And I think it's beyond doubt, it has been brought out today that in access, until the patient reaches a doctor, because ultimately it is the patient and the doctor when they are face to face and that interaction happens, that is the gold standard. But until that happens, and if for any reason that does not happen, that is where this entire ecosystem of telehealth works. And if we can make that strong, we can actually add value to that direct interaction that finally achieves and can get the best results in terms of preventive as well as for curative health. And so I think a lot of people have asked very relevant questions. A lot of them pertain to the space. And we are definitely, with the remedy challenge, we are hoping that people who work in to augment this space, people who can augment the teleconsultation by monitoring various parameters, by introducing devices, I think all those brilliant minds will work and will contribute to the future of healthcare. And with that, sir,
I have one last thought I'd like to share.
Yes, sir.
As I hear and read from friends in India, many of them have succumbed to COVID, and many are scared, are retiring and leaving practice because they are scared of COVID. I would like to tell people this telemedicine does not have to be telefar. It can be within the hospital. If I am a pulmonologist and I'm sitting in my office in the hospital, if there is a patient in COVID area that I can listen to and hear and have somebody who's a clinician in the unit with the COVID patient, it would be very easy for me to follow and listen to that patient and give advice without me at the age of 70 exposing myself to the COVID infection and be one of the targets for that COVID. So we talk of telemedicine only being far. I would start recommending you and everybody else to think about telemedicine within the institution.
Yeah, definitely, sir. And I think what is very interesting to note is that COVID has really catalyzed the importance and has brought forward from the background this entire telemedicine and the telehealth space, which was always there in the background, but nobody paid much attention to it. And suddenly we find, as somebody had written, one of the questions was that it's developing at a breakneck speed. It's just that people are, I think, getting to know about it in large numbers because of the situation that has been brought upon by COVID. So
but
that is
but
there.
Uma, it's very strange when you say that they're finding it. The day the vaccine news came on Monday, when they described the Pfizer vaccine being 90% plus positive, the price of Zoom went down. So, I throw my hands up and say, kya kahun? Sometimes it's impossible to fathom what it happens. Every time Mr. Zuckerberg goes before the Senate or the Congress to defend his solution, the price of Facebook goes up. In 2018, I actually monitored the market as he was speaking there. It kept shooting up. As a matter of fact, for the 8 hours he spent in front of the Congress, $4 billion was spent. So I'm not sure common sense is all there.
No, but
So
I'm sure this is going to stay because a lot of people have discovered how useful it is. And
Yeah.
a lot of doctors who would otherwise retire realize that they don't have to retire.
Exactly.
And a lot of people who did not have the freedom to travel because they have doctor's appointments and reviews and follow-ups now know that it doesn't matter. They can be in any part of the world and they can still be in touch with their doctor. And it is not strange to consult a doctor anymore from a remote space. And also to be wearing gadgets and monitoring your parameters, it is not strange at all. So I think
No.
that's definitely going to stay. So,
So
sir,
I look forward and I will volunteer my time for the remedy if required,
thank you so
because
much, sir.
I would love to encourage young people doing big things and great things.
I'm sure, sir, they will really benefit from some advice from you. And I look forward to inviting you again for some more talks with some of the focus groups, and we'll work on that. So thank you so much.
Sounds good, ma'am.
Thank you very much. And I want to just share with everybody again, your passion for teaching and mentorship is so obvious that you got up probably at 4:30 in the morning to get ready to present this session to us. We are anyway comfortably sitting at 6 o'clock in the evening, and you are there in early morning. Thank you so much, sir. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I appreciate all your kind
And
words.
thank you for all the participants. Some of them stayed up till the fag end. Thank you very much.
Hey, Thomas Philip. He's actually a PhD in hospital management. He's the earliest one from IIM Bangalore.
Oh,
But
okay.
he's my classmate, and I would ask you to reach out to him. He lives in Delhi. So I'll introduce him to you, Uma.
Yes, sir. Sure. Look forward.
Okay.
Okay, sir. Thank you so much, sir.